Hey guys, new format this week. Gonna try to keep things a little bit casual, see how you like it, see how I like it, and we'll just see how things go. And if it winds up being good for everyone, we'll just stick with it. But this week I'm working on the Air Arms ProSport, and basically wherever my eyes fall, I'm gonna share with you what I've learned about it so far. But before we go there, let me give you a little bit of an overview and a background on the gun and how it got into my hands. So I think I've shared with you before that as an airgun reviewer, there are products that are sent to me by the industry that they want reviewed. And then every once in a while, I get to pick something that I want reviewed, and that's how I got my hands on the ProSport. It was actually kind of initiated directly with Air Arms, and this came to me via their US distributor, Air Venturi/Pyramid Air. All right. Now, the reason I chose this gun, and you're probably looking at this and saying, well, that's been around for a long time, and it has. This gun's been around since 1996, so double check my math, but what's that, 23 or so years? And it still competes very favorably with new air guns that are introduced into the market today. And, you know, this is a product that I always kind of keep tabs on, and it seems like, you know, for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years that I've really been focusing on air guns as a hobby and then as a profession. You know, it's a product that when you watch at the distributors and the retailers, it comes in and then it sells out, and it comes in and it sells out. So that kind of tells me, along with the, you know, the focus I see from you guys on the forum still, that it's a very trending product. Now, I will be the first to say that the Air Arms ProSport is not going to be for everyone, all right? This isn't a value-priced air gun. You're looking at a $700 to $800 piece right here without the scope and mounts. They're $700 in beech. They're $800 in walnut. This one here is the walnut. So, you know, there's that. So if that turns you off, just click stop and go watch something else. But if you want to know why they're so expensive and why they keep selling as well as they do, you know, stick around. We're gonna get into that. All right, but just looking at the gun from the top down without really dissecting anything yet, this is an absolutely beautiful Springer air gun. So Springer, we normally associate that with a brake barrel, but as you notice, there's no brake barrel anywhere around here, right? It's just kind of a fixed barrel system. And if I show you the bottom of the gun, you're going to see a flush mount aluminum alloy cocking lever, right? So when you step back and you just look at this guy, it kind of gives you that center fire traditional sporter overall look and feel. And I think that's one of the things that really attracts people to it. Now, the other one is, look, guys, I've been buying air guns like you guys have since I was the age of 16. I'm in my 40s now. That must be the mailman, sorry. And you know, when you get into the value-priced air guns, they're not always perfect, right? But when you look at Air Arms as a company, you know, these guys aren't newcomers. They've been around for a long, long time. And when I say that, these guys were like, you know, they're of the innovators in the air gun industry. They've been competing for 30, 40 years, and if I'm not mistaken, they've been making air guns for maybe as long as 50. So, you know, their philosophy is a little bit different than everyone's. If they can't make an air gun and have it be perfect, and what I mean by perfect is cosmetically and functionally perfect. Now, I know you may not like the look of all of them, but you know, they would rather sacrifice, they would rather lose the sale than to put out a product that isn't absolutely flawless. And this is a very good example of that. It comes through in their manufacturing, in their design, and it's just who they are. They're not trying to be the cheap guys out there. So, you know, with that out of the way, all right? Now, the next thing that kind of jumps out at you is this walnut stock, all right? It's a sporter stock. I think, depending on where you live in the world, these come in either left or right-hand version. I think here in the States, we can just get them in right-handers. I may be wrong about that. Double check me. But as you can see, you know, it's a Monte Carlo sporter setup for a right-handed shooter. And the stock is not only walnut, as I mentioned, but this is also made in Italy, the stock, by Minelli. And if you know Minelli, they're a world famous stock manufacturer that kind of focus on a lot of the the high-end air guns that are out there. So that adds some significant cost, and the stock is custom made to Air Arms' specs so that it can fit this gun, and it's bedded in there perfect and all these other things. So it ain't the cheapest thing out there, and especially when you add like a ventilated rubber butt pad on the end of this thing. It's not just the typical butt pad we see on the end of an air gun. Now, I mentioned before it still competes very favorably with today's modern air guns, and what I mean by that is it performs at a high level. Like we kind of live in a time now where everyone is really focused on power and energy, but there is a caveat there. And the quicksand is that when you get into springers, the higher you get up in power and energy, the more difficult they become to shoot well and to shoot consistently well. If you're trying to shoot them out at 25 and 50 yards, the way that I do. And so, Air Arms, they know that. And I'm sure you guys know, because a lot of you come from powder burners, you've been hunting your whole lives like I have. You need 6 foot-pounds of energy to humanely dispatch something like a squirrel or rabbit, out to 25 yards. Well, this gun doesn't produce 6 foot-pounds of energy. It produces 16 to 17 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. In my time spent with it over the last couple days, it was pushing an 11.75 grain to around 712 feet per second at the muzzle. It's pushing a 14.3 grain to around 703. So 16, 17 foot-pounds of energy. Those pellets are carrying with them 12 to 14 foot-pounds of energy 25 yards downrange. So certainly an adequate hunter and sporter for distances like 25 and 50 yards. And it's not so overpowered. Like, for example, I have 2 YouTube channels. A lot of you guys know that. There's AEAC Home, the big one, and then this one here, the baby vlog. And I read all of the comments on all of them. And inevitably, there's always some guy that comes along that just doesn't get it, right? I'll put up a review of a nice, finely made Springer, and they'll say, oh, well, my so-and-so makes just as much power and it's half as much money. Well, yeah, that may be true, but that's not the point and that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is in a spring gun, it's really important to find balance between power and ease of use so that you can have the accuracy that you need to be an effective air gunner. And this is one of those products that absolutely does that. Now, despite, I can imagine the glare is something in the lens, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle this around for you. Look at the bluing in this rifle. It's just absolutely stunning. It is the deepest, shiniest bluing I've ever seen on an air gun ever. And like I said, this is a 23-year-old model. Now, granted, they've made some changes to it along the way. So, it's not like you're buying a dinosaur, right? It's still very relevant, as I said, in today's arena. But let me just kind of get you to focus on this area up here. So you'll notice that it doesn't do the brake barrel thing that a lot of us are accustomed to, that they've gone to this underlever cocking. And with the underlever cocking, you get what's called a fixed barrel system. Now, one of the lion's dens that kind of surrounds springers or brake barrel air guns is that over time, with you breaking it down and putting it back up, parts wear out, right? Screws and bolts and pins and nuts loosen up. And what you wind up with is wandering accuracy. Well, the beauty of a fixed barrel system is that this is always one big piece, and all of the moving is done underneath, separate from the breech and barrel and engine alignment that you have in the rest of the gun. So what that means to you at the end of the day is you invest in something like this, in 25, 30 years later, even longer, you're going to still own a really nice air gun that you can pass down to your kids or grandkids that will always be a great shooter, right? Now, the other thing you notice is how kind of short it is, right? This is only 40 3/4 inches long. Let me kind of move it back into center frame here for you. All right, so it's kind of a hunter carbine type deal. And the barrel, believe it or not, it starts about right here, the breech, and it ends probably about right there. This is a 9.5-inch barrel. Now, just to let you know, in order to generate 16 to 17 foot-pounds of energy in a 9.5-inch barrel, you got to have a really big motor in your air gun, and this one absolutely does. Like I said, this is kind of a vintage approach, and so it uses a coil spring in place of the gas ram springs that we're seeing in so many air guns today. And I've read some crazy things from manufacturers like, oh, the advantage to the gas ram is that you can leave it cocked all day and you won't have spring fatigue. Bunk, unless it's an absolutely bottom barrel type air gun. You know, you can leave this cocked for a week and it's not going to fatigue the spring. It's just the type of materials and elements that they use in a gun like this. So just don't let that poison your brain, all right? But now what people kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a turn off to them when spring air guns go boing instead of thick like they might with a gas ram. And that's true, they do that. It never really bothered me so much. I know it bothers a lot of y'all, and that's fine. I respect that. I don't want to take away from that. But something Air Arms does different is this is a tuned piston and spring from the factory. So a lot of you guys, the first thing you like to do when you buy a break barrel air gun is you like to take it all apart. You put a better spring in there, you put a better head in there, you put a better seal in there, you put a better guide in there. You take out all the crappy factory lubes and you put in all your good magic potions, and now you have a slick shooting Springer, right? Well, being that these are factory tuned directly from Air Arms, by the way, did I mention that Air Arms is made in the United Kingdom? I think I forgot that, sorry. Made in the UK. When they factory tune those for you, you get a very slick firing, very mild-mannered recoil and firing stroke in the air gun, which at the end of the day translates into smooth, easy accuracy for you guys. So it makes it more enjoyable to shoot, and it's easier to shoot well. All right, now back to that barrel. So that barrel's only 9.5 inches long, right? And they don't put just any barrel in here, all right? Now you guys, a lot of you have probably heard of the company Lothar Walther. A lot of airgun brands like to tout, we have a Lothar Walther barrel. It's a German-made barrel. It's a very good barrel, but when you as an airgun manufacturer contact Lothar Walther to buy barrels for your airguns that you're going to produce, guys, I got to tell you, they have a lot of different grades of barrel, all right? And I'm in a very privileged and blessed position to where I communicate with 17 or 18 different airgun companies and manufacturers regularly. And, you know, some kind of approach it where they're going to buy like 500 of these Lothar Walther barrels, get them at a good price, start putting them in the air guns and test them, and they may get half of those to perform the way they want to perform. The rest of them go in the bin and go out to the end of the driveway for the garbage man to take them away. Okay, that's one way you can do it. Now, other companies like to pay Lothar Walther for a higher grade of their barrels, which is called match grade, all right? So it's a more expensive option from Lothar Walther for the manufacturer, and the ProSport here uses a match grade Lothar Walther barrel, but it doesn't end there, okay? Now, an airgun manufacturer can slap that in their gun, package it up, send it down the road for you guys, all right? Or once they get that barrel, and there's some companies that do this, this is one of them, they spend a lot of time fine-tuning every single barrel, meaning they clean it, they polish it, they lap it, they do all these things, make sure that the lead-in is just perfect, they make sure that the, God, I'm having a brain fart, I'm getting old, that the crown is just perfect. And, you know, and then they test it and they put that in their gun. And that's what Air Arms does in their barrels. And evidence of this for me, an airgun reviewer, is when I reviewed the Air Arms Galahad, the S510XS, the S410, and the TX200, and now the ProSport, I began to notice pattern, and I'm always looking for pattern as an airgun reviewer, so I know which ways to take my channel down for you guys so it stays relevant in your world. But the pattern I get is, and this absolutely blows my mind. So when you get the gun, we're all used to, when it first comes, you take it out of the box and you start pulling those patches through, and it looks like they coat the inside of their barrels in tar. All right, you don't get that with Air Arms. 1, 2, 3, 4 patches when you first get the gun, and the barrel's going to be squeaky clean. Now that's just part of the story. All right, now the rest of the story, the thing that absolutely blows my mind is the other day I spent 6.5 hours putting 25 or 30 different types of pellets through this gun. It wound up being like 290 some shots at the end of the day. Yes, I kept track because I want to know where I am in the break-in so I can relay that to you guys. But having put all of that crap through the barrel of this gun, 4 patches, reverse pulled, so 8 total pulls, and the thing is completely squeaky clean. All right. What that means to you is that it's a barrel that is going to be much less likely to foul on you, so that you can shoot it and shoot it and shoot it and shoot it. You hear guys on the forums all the time, mine needs to be cleaned every 100 shots. Another guy goes, I haven't cleaned mine in 5,000 shots and I've owned the thing for 10 plus years. You're crazy if you clean your airgun barrel. That has a lot to do with the condition of the inside of the barrel. If it's polished to like a mirror finish where the gunk and the crap can't bond to it, right, you're always going to have good, repeatable, consistent accuracy no matter how much you shoot the darn thing, right? So that's a lot on the barrel, but that just gives you kind of a little peek into what's going on with all that. Now, I do want to circle back and talk about the power plant, right? So they're generating 16 to 17 foot-pounds of energy, which is a lot, out of a 9.5-inch barrel. So, there's quite a stout engine in here, all right? Nice pro being that it's nice and slick, it's nice and streamlined. You got this, little cocking up here, all right? I will be very transparent with you, and it's important for you to know that to cock this, and I'm not going to do it because you guys can see that next week when I do the full review. You'll see me cock it plenty. But cocking this is not an easy thing to do, all right? One, because we're all used to normally grabbing up here, like on the TX200 and the little breaker bar that comes underneath, or, a typical brake barrel where you break. So you got all this leverage to compress that spring. Well, when you lose half your leverage, you double. Now, I don't know if the geometry in here is exactly double, so don't quote me on that. But when you cock this bad boy, you feel it because you're trying to compress that spring and you're doing it not from up here, but to be honest with you, it really doesn't start to compress till about there. You're kind of working in this area right here. So if you don't spend time taking care of your body, this isn't going to be the most pleasant thing for you. And I know I'm making kind of a big deal out of it, and for 99% of you, it's probably no deal. But it's something I noticed when I put 300 rounds through it the other day, that especially coming off of some other recent brake barrel reviews, it takes some effort, all right? So there's a little bit of a trade-off, to get the sleek design and to get the fixed barrel system that you don't have to worry about moving around on you over time, all right? Now, speaking of 300 shots, and I don't want to get too far off track, but this Nikon scope here, EFR, it's a P3 Pro Staff. It's a sub $200 scope. Airguns of Arizona sent it to me, and I am absolutely falling in love with this scope. It's perfect for springers. Wasn't so sure at first, but if you caught last week's review over on AEAC Home of the new SIG, I had like 500 shots through that baby, and that's like a 20 foot-pound gun. I had this scope, this exact scope on there, didn't phase it. Got another 300, different power plant, different gun, still holding a perfect 0. And one of the most common questions I get from you guys over on AEAC Home is, I've got this brake barrel, it came with this bundled scope that's a piece of crap. It lasted a week, now it's broke, what do I buy? Well, this is a great alternative. I think these are, somewhere between 170 and 190 bucks or so, depending on where you can find them. Like I said, I got this one at Airguns of Arizona. So, damn, what a nice scope for a Springer. Totally falling in love with it. But you can, if you watch the SIG review from last week, You can, or actually it's from this past weekend. You know, I talk a lot more about this scope and show you through the glass and stuff, so you guys can check all that out. Now, the mounts, I'm always using Sports Match scope mounts. They sponsor me. They're out of the United Kingdom. And something I really loved about these mounts, and I've been getting questions from you guys on mounts as well. You know, you're like, I got this great Springer, but my scope, every time I shoot it, it tends to migrate, you know, down the receiver of the gun. And I see a lot of you guys on the forums and your pictures putting on these gigantic, robust mounts with like these 3.5-inch long clamping vices on the side. You guys, you don't need to do that. What you need to do, you need to get yourself a set of Sports Match scope mounts with the anti-recoil easy fit pin, I think is what they call it. And y'all need to buy yourself an air gun that has these little scope stop holes in the top. That way you can mount a very lightweight scope mount like this, shoot it until you're blue in the face for 10 years, and it's absolutely not going to budge. So wanted to answer that because a couple of you have been asking me that on the last video in the comments. And also, as long as I'm showing you this, look at the size of this scope real estate. You know, a lot of times today we've got these little 11 millimeter rails or little 5-inch Weaver rails on the back. They've given you, it's like half the length. It's more than half the length of the receiver, right? So you got plenty of real estate to slide your scope around, you know, as far as where you want it. All right. On the cocking, I know I'm circling around a lot and I'm kind of running like an air hose with the end cut off today, but I wanted to try this new format that kind of wherever my eyes land, I'm just sharing with you what I've learned. But back to that cocking, the owner's manual says that, quote unquote, if I remember it, the ProSport cannot be easily decocked. I tried decocking it for a couple of minutes and I couldn't figure out how to, so there's that. Just be aware of it. You know, if you do clean it or whatever, you're going to have to find a safe place to discharge it afterwards, because when you break that arm down, it slides the breech open. It's all kind of linked together in there, and then you can have access to where you clean and put your pellets in. So there's that. And the safety is an automatic safety. It's right up here on the back, perfectly placed right for your thumb. Actually, let me turn that where you can actually see it. Perfectly placed right for the thumb, and it clicks around super, super easy. I found it very natural as I was coming up on target or coming down on the bag, just a click with the thumb, and there's nothing to it. Awesome. As long as we're kind of in this area, let's talk about the trigger. So the trigger was the discussion, seemed to be kind of the focus last week. And when I reviewed the SIG, there was a lot of talk about it over on Airgun Nation forum. There's a lot of talk about it in the comments of both the vid here on AEAC vlog and the full review over on the other channel, AEAC Home. And there's a lot of different philosophies and approaches on triggers. Now, the two best, and I'm not supposed to use the word best because I'm an airgun reviewer, but no, that's not true. There's no rules for me. I don't like to use the word best. I like to talk about pros and cons and let you guys decide what's best. You guys know I just try to relay all the information and let you make up your mind. And as much as possible, I like to try to keep my opinion out of it. But there's two great triggers in the spring airgun world. There's the record trigger that's in the, I'm going to say it right, wow. And then there's this, I don't know what they call it, but it's the gold trigger that's in the Air Arms. And this trigger is amazing. It's dual stage, it's match grade, it's fully adjustable. But the awesome thing is right out of the box, I needed to do nothing with it. It had a long light first stage, came up against a nice clean stop. And with 11.6 or 7 ounces, boom, off it goes. Now, that's probably too light for a hunter. If I personally am standing and shooting this gun and I get like a tick or something, or get a mosquito bite, that thing's going off. So you probably want around 1.5 pounds. At least I like around 1.5 pounds for hunting, maybe 2. If you're a little bit shaky and haven't had your orange juice in the morning or whatever. But point being is you don't have to fiddle with the trigger. It is phenomenal right out of the box. The other point being is when you get a spring guns, as you know, and someone asked me the other day on Instagram, hey Steve, is it hold sensitive? Guys, gals, all spring guns are hold sensitive. Doesn't matter who makes them Doesn't matter how old they or newer they are, or how much they cost, or how much power they make. However, the more challenging their triggers are to master, the more powerful the gun is, the more unrefined the firing mechanism is, the more vibration and harmonic issues you get, the harder they become to shoot well. So a trigger like this and an air gun like this absolutely contributes to a platform like this being easy to shoot well. It kind of brings in great harmony with a factory-tuned power plant and a match-grade, factory-tuned Lothar Walther barrel, right? And the fixed barrel. It all just kind of works with the same energy and making the gun very enjoyable and very easy to shoot well. Speaking of easy to shoot well, all right, a lot of times these Lothar Walther barrels can be a little bit fussy. I found that this one was not. I mean, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different types of pellets. Make the 10-cent club where they're all shooting dimers easily at 25 yards. It's not like you shoot 3 groups and cherry pick one and you know, you're like, oh, I shot a dimer. No, it's always dimers. It's really, really easy to shoot well as long as you do your part and manage your consistent hold. Again, and I think that speaks volumes to not just the barrel, but the overall, I keep using the word harmony, but that's just what keeps jumping into my head. There's guns that like fight one another and then in turn end up fighting me when I'm trying to review them for you. And there's guns that you pick up and you start shooting, and within 15, 20 shots, you've got it figured out and you're just diming it all day long. But, you know, back to the power thing, it was interesting to me that this gun performed so well with lead-free alloys, both accurate, both powerful, carrying a lot of energy from the muzzle down range. So, you know, I'll put some of that up here on the screen for you if I have it. I think I do. But the other kind of neat takeaway is not only did it do well with both brands, both arch enemies of alloy pellets, the Predator GTO that JSB makes and the Barracuda Match that H&M makes, but it did well, very well, with JSB's new Hades. Now, I know what you're going to ask me in the comments. No, I'm not going to shoot this into ballistic gelatin with the Hades. You know, at 15, 16 foot-pounds of energy, or 16, 17, whatever, you know, this is a pellet that probably needs 25-ish, I'm guessing. Don't quote me on that. I haven't tried it yet, but to properly open up in calibrated gelatin. But the point is, it absolutely loved these things, and they were shooting groups like the size of my pinky nail at 25 yards. Of course, it did well with the Hades sister pellet, the 16 grain Air Arms of the 1589 JSB. For whatever reason, the tin of 1589 JSBs it didn't like, but it liked them 16 grains, and it liked you know, that 16 grain Hades. The RS, the 13.43 grain RS, I try these in every air gun because they're a JSB, so you know the consistency is going to be there. They have a nice big build on their skirt, which I really like, so you get the uniformity. And they're nice and lightweight, so when you get a Springer that wants to shoot, you know, sub 20 foot-pounds, they're a great choice. And they wound up being a great choice. They shot very well out to 25. And 2 weeks in a row, guys, I'm on a roll. I don't know if Crossman sprinkled some magic pixie dust on this tin that I bought personally at the Walmart 5 miles up the road. But these Crossman Premier Dome 14.3 grains, they did great out of the SIG. And my goodness, they're also doing great out of the ProSport here. And these things are dirt cheap. So if you don't have any money left after spending it all on your ProSport and your Nikon scope, go down to Walmart, get yourself some Crossman Premiers and shoot all you want. Now, in the full review coming up next week on AEAC Home, I'll move all of these pellets out to 50 yards. You know, the one that the gun likes best, that I feel confident, you know, that you guys can be consistent with too at that range, I'll feature in the video, and I'll retest them all at 25 and probably feature a couple in that vid for you as well. But holy moly, I think I'm just going to leave it right there. That's kind of a lot for one day. I saved you the infomercial, you know, kind of in the beginning of the video. But if you're new to AEAC, this isn't my my main YouTube channel. This is kind of a sister channel or an offshoot where I like to get a little bit more intimate with you guys, if you will, and then you get more of a serious, focused, full review over on my other YouTube channel. It's called the Airgun Exploration and Advancement channel. It's also called AEAC Home. I'll have a full review up of this next week over on that channel. And oh my gosh, I almost forgot. One of you guys is going to win this gun. And as long as we're on that, I want to take a minute, and I know I sound like a NASCAR driver when I do this, and I don't mean to, but I sincerely want to thank Air Arms. It's so generous of these companies to keep donating product for us to be able to give back to you. Like one of the YouTube guys, one of the subscribers, I don't know if he's a subscriber or if he's just a follower or whatever, but he made the comment that he felt like it was, I think he used the word hokey or gimmicky. He used the word gimmicky, that we give away airgun products. When I'm looking at that, that's like, you know, as a guy that works on the behalf of you guys, that's one of the things I'm most proud of, that we've got these partnerships and these relationships with airgun retailers, with distributors, with the factories direct, where they think enough of us and what we're doing, and because you guys, so many of you are following along, that they allow us to give away $800 air guns, and we do it every month. It's like a grand or two a month back to you guys. I feel a little bit like Robin Hood here. So keep an eye to AEAC Home. That's all going to be through the Airgun Nation forum. That's kind of town central for airgunners when you want to get on the internet and discuss airguns. It's their event. I just get to kick it off, do the video, and then I'll send y'all over there to participate in the giveaway. It's easy, guys. You literally pick a number and you enter it there in the thread, and there'll be a video by Michael with a random number generator. He's going to pick your name, and we send it over. We send the product off to you at the end of that 10-day event. But thank you, Air Arms. So nice of you, and just very, very generous, and we appreciate it. So with that, I think I'm going to leave it right there. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, hopefully this video has brightened your day a little bit, and I will see you again next week.